Hey fam, it's the NFT Roundtable, a podcast by Umba Daima. It is Tuesday, November 1st, 2022, and I'm your host, Iris Nevins. Today I'm speaking with Kyle Tutt, who is the co-founder and CEO of Piñata, a platform for NFT media management that was actually launched during a hackathon, specifically ETH Berlin, and won. And now Piñata serves over 240,000 users worldwide, a major accomplishment. Very happy to have you here today and talk about Piñata. We've actually done, I think, one or two events with your community team, by the way,
Right.
last year, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, happy to have you. So please tell our listeners a bit about yourself, like your story, how you got to this point of being a CEO.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks for having me on. So my story, I always like to start with, starts back when I was a little kid. I wanted to be a car mechanic. That was like my dream when I was 8 years old. My mom asked me what I wanted to be, and she said, or I said, I wanted to be a car mechanic. And my mom handled it really well, I think, by saying, Kyle, it's okay if you want to be a car mechanic, just make sure you own the mechanic shop. And I kind of always took that to heart, and I think is what eventually led me to wanting to start my own company and eventually making my way to starting Piñata. As far as fast forwarding a little bit, I'm non-technical, so I'm not a developer. I don't code or anything like that, but have obviously built a company in a very technical space. And how I got into that was, I got interested in blockchain and crypto in 2015 when I first bought some Bitcoin, but I was never really kind of like a crypto trader person or speculator like that. I was always kind of more interested in the technology and trying to figure out like how would I build a business on this stuff. And so 2015, I was interested in Bitcoin, but 2016 I got really interested in Ethereum, and I love the idea of smart contracts, and what the possibilities were, and where that could go. And so I was teaching myself as much as I could from like Twitter and Reddit on what this stuff was. And then in April of 2017, I ended up feeling comfortable enough to quit my job and jump into the space full time. When I did that, I didn't know what I was going to do in the space, other than like I had this goal of obviously starting my own company. But again, I was pretty naive to the technology and to the space, and I had to learn a lot. And being based in Omaha, Nebraska, I didn't have a bunch of a community around me. There was nobody I could go to in Omaha that could like help me or teach me. And then there wasn't like a bunch of opportunities. It wasn't like I could get a job in the space. I in Omaha, I would have to move somewhere else, and I didn't want to do that. So what I ended up doing is jumping on a plane and flying to New York. And I had this idea of, okay, if I'm non-technical, I need to understand this technology better. And the way I was going to do that was going to hackathons. So the first thing I did is I flew to New York, which by the way was the first time I'd ever been to New York. So I was pretty kind of sheltered. Flew to New York, competed at a hackathon, ended up meeting some really great people there, blockchain engineers. Their names were Dion and Zen. And I was able to just learn a lot from them. And I kept doing that and going to these hackathons all summer of 2017, just trying to learn as much as I can and understanding this space as best as I can. Now, I'm still in Omaha. And so the other problem I needed to solve for was the fact that, it was pretty lonely here, not having anybody I can really talk to or, nerd out about blockchain and crypto at the time. So I started the blockchain meetup group in town, ended up growing to like 500 people. And my co-founder, Matt, was one of the first people to reach out to me. And Matt is a software engineer and has eventually became the co-founder and CTO of Piñata. Um, However, we didn't have a job yet or anything. So we were like, I was like, hey, come with me to to another hackathon, and that ended up being ETH Waterloo, which is where CryptoKitties launched, which is one of the first major NFT projects to ever release, and that was in the later half of 2017. And so it's always been part of Matt and I's story. And so we were going to these hackathons, doing kind of like some consulting, building blockchain applications. And through all of that, going to hackathons and building some applications is kind of how we ran into the problem of Piñata itself, which was storing data on a blockchain is really, really expensive. And I think it was something like $4.5 million to store a gigabyte of data on Ethereum back in 2018 or whenever it was. And so we came up with this idea of like, let's just make that easier. People were using a protocol at the time called IPFS, or the Interplanetary File System. The problem with that was it wasn't very fast, wasn't very stable. So we were just like, let's make IPFS as fast and stable as possible and manage off-chain data. We ended up launching that in late 2018 at ETH Berlin. And as you mentioned, we ended up winning that hackathon. And at that point, we thought, we were going to take over the world and everything was going to go great. And we were going to raise a bunch of money. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. We ended up having 2 years of pretty much nobody using us and no success. So yeah, it's been a journey. There's a lot of time. I lived in my parents' basement for a little bit, trying to make it work because we were just not making a lot of money. And now, fast forward, we have a bunch of users and are a pretty integral part of the NFT space. So it's paid off, but it was definitely a hard journey to get here.
Yeah. First of all, I love that story.
Thank you.
Um, a few things that stood out to me. One, you're very resourceful and very good at following your curiosity, right?
That's
And
exactly what it is. It's just like, you run into a question or a problem and you're like, all right, how do I solve this? Right.
mm-hmm,
I think I think people, usually when they look at me and think about being in Omaha, Nebraska, they think of it kind of as a detractor or a barrier
mm-hmm,
to what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to build. But I've always kind of thought of it as it allows me to ask different questions and do things in kind of a different way.
mm-hmm.
And I have to get on planes and fly places, obviously, but it was like that first barrier, right? Like, okay, I want to be in this space and I have no resources. So what am I going to do?
Yeah.
How am I going to solve this problem, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. I love it. I mean, I think I think, there are founders who kind of fall into it. Um and then there are founders who are they're founders by nature. They've probably been founders for a long
Yep.
time, even if they didn't realize it. Um, and yeah, I definitely resonate with that path of being like, okay, this is my situation, but I know what I want to learn. I know what I want
Yep.
to, at least explore. Let me take some specific steps to like kind of break out of these barriers that are in front of me. What's also pretty cool is the fact that, well, one, CryptoKitties, one of the founders of CryptoKitties is one of my advisors, Mac Flavel,
Yeah.
who's incredible. Um, so it's cool that you were active, back then. And I'd love to get into kind of what the what the kind of like mentality and vibe was back then.
Yeah.
Because I feel like so much has changed even just from 2020 to 2022.
Yep.
And then in terms of like living in your parents' basement, and not making revenue for 2 years, this is actually very timely because we actually did great our first year, and then this year we we haven't increased revenue. We stayed pretty much the same.
Flat. Yep.
Um, and but it's like it's getting to that point of like, okay, this is where we're concerned, and we're also building software in the back end
Yep.
as well. But there's, it takes time to get that ready to hit the market, and then whatever, da da da.
Absolutely.
Fundraising has been rough. Nobody wants to spend money, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
And so I'm going through this whole like founder existential crisis. What am I
Yep.
doing with my life? I
Yep.
just
I've been there.
literally just sold my house so that I can invest in the business. And I'm
Yeah.
in Miami, at my parents for the winter because I don't have a place to live.
Yep.
Um, and so it's definitely, I literally just had like two calls about making some drastic changes in the business.
Yep.
And so this is a timely conversation, and it actually
Yeah.
is very encouraging, because people make it seem as if as a founder, like you should just be making money right away, and that's not always how it works.
Yeah. No, absolutely. It certainly wasn't the way it worked for me, and I want to say congrats on making it this far, and you'll keep making it through. I think externally, and I try to talk about this within my company a lot, is uh, you know, Piñata is now 45 people. We've raised a bunch of money, and it, probably externally looks like I know what I'm doing, and I have my shit together, if you will. But I was always, kind of lost, or it felt like I was lost, and I didn't necessarily know exactly where the next answer was going to come from. There's
Mm-hmm.
always kind of these like existential doubts, kind of floating around you, and every step of the journey, it seems like the doubts stay there. They change. They're different
Mm-hmm.
doubts, but you just keep running into them. And as the NFT market has, depending on where you look, it's down like 99%. As you see that, obviously you're always trying to look for, where is the next opportunity going to come from? What is that next move that I have to do to ensure that we can keep moving on. And one of the things I always think about is just like, I'm okay with going back to my parents' basement. I think I could make that work, even though I don't want to.
Uh-huh.
But now we have employees at Piñata that ultimately I'm responsible for, and ensuring that they have a place to be is really important to me. So I always want to, I want to set the company up to be as successful as possible, so I don't ever have to try to make some of those hard decisions. And maybe I'm more fearful than I need to be, and I'm always kind of questioning, um, what to do next, just because I'd rather be afraid now, or I was afraid a year ago when everything was going right, than be afraid when everything's going bad and I don't have the opportunity or the time, I guess, to turn it
Mm-hmm.
around.
What keeps you going? Like, what has kept you going throughout all of this? And I feel like, especially with software, sometimes it's kind of like, or with technical products, it's kind of like, well, what why are you so passionate about file
Yeah.
storage?
Yeah, so I love NFTs. So kind of let's take a step back to CryptoKitties launching, and then I can kind of get to answering that question. So when I ran into the concept of CryptoKitties at ETH Waterloo in late 2017, um, I was just kind of like blown away, because everything at the time was ERC20 tokens or ICO tokens, or whatever. And so this new form of a token was really cool. And
Mm-hmm.
um, I started instantly applying it to absolutely everything I could. And my first blog on NFTs was actually in 2017. It was December 30th, 2017. I remember it. And I applied it to the thing that I knew, which is, farming. Being in Nebraska, there's a lot of farming around me. And I applied basically data about farms or their fields, and attach those to NFTs. And I was like, all right, let's just like buy and sell crop data associated with an NFT, and one NFT equals 1 acre, or something to that effect, and
Mm-hmm.
people would use those. And that led me down this path of where like I thought NFTs were going to be used, or become used for like enterprise data or data sets, or like, not
Not art.
images. Yeah, not art, right?
Yeah.
Like I didn't see that coming at all, right?
Mhm.
And I think I created my first NFT in early 2018, and I've created, quite a few just random NFTs. And back in 2018, it's like it was literally like six people, or that's what it felt like. Maybe it was like 20, but there just weren't that many people in the space. And I was using, I think there was a website called Digital Art Chain, and Mokins.io or something like that,
Mhm.
were some of the ones out there. And uh, just kind of exploring like what these things could represent. And then kind of went away from it because Piñata wasn't really focused, isn't specifically built for NFTs. It's actually built for just off-chain storage in general. It was just that NFTs were the best use case. But from 2018 until like 2020, we just didn't see a lot of traction around there. So in that time, spent a lot of time kind of researching NFTs and thinking about NFTs. And ultimately, I believe that NFTs are going to be used for pretty much all data, all files, and that's what I get really excited about. And
Yeah.
so, the excitement that happened as NFTs were being applied to art and 10K PFP projects and all that kind of stuff. While a totally different direction than I thought, it still kind of aligned with what I was thinking, which is ultimately we're buying and selling data or
Data.
files or whatever,
Yeah.
and that made sense to me. And so that's where down now that we're down 99% or whatever, that's where I still think that's true. It's just going to look different. Obviously, there's not so much hype, not so much bubble behavior related to it, but
Mhm.
ultimately, it's going to be the thing that I think the future of the internet's built on. It's just we still have a long, long ways to go.
Yeah. Very, very forward thinking. And a phrase that I've heard, been hearing lately is that data is the new gold.
Yep.
Um, and so it seems like you are essentially creating like the infrastructure for storing what will one day be, the new gold, which is going to be very, very highly valuable. Except maybe it's not gold, maybe it's like, I don't know, like cobalt or
Yeah.
something that's like in everything, right?
Yep.
um or iron, or what's another metal?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess just steel. I guess iron
Steel.
is in steel. I don't know. Whatever.
Yeah, I can't my science days are long gone.
Well in the
um
past.
but cool. Okay, got it. Yeah, I can definitely see the big vision now. Didn't see it before. Pinata seemed like a very, of course, like a very useful product, but a
Yep.
very kind of just like, your typical kind of like developer infrastructure tool.
Yep.
So now to like get that deeper story is really cool.
Yeah, and kind of on that point, what's interesting about Piñata is ultimately we don't mint, which has always been a unique perspective that we've been able to have. So if you're an NFT project, you upload your content to us first and then attach it to whatever smart contract or NFT it is that you want to attach it to. So we've been able to work with projects that, number one, are on Ethereum and are working on unique implementations of NFTs, but also we've been able to work across every major chain that you can name out there. And
Hmm.
so we've been able to just see incredibly unique use cases of NFTs working with our customers. And then the other thing that I don't think people had recognized in the, like 2020, 2021 early on was that the only thing you could create as an NFT early was an image attached to an NFT. And we knew that if you could upload a file to us, you could attach it to an NFT. And so we have always had this much broader perspective that it could be a full application, or it could be a video, or it could be music, or whatever the file type is underneath. We always knew it could be more than an image, and like now, obviously that makes sense. But in 2020, that's not really where the space was. So yeah, it's always been very exciting to know that NFTs could pretty much be anything you could imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And we've always been just slowly working our way towards that, and building tools and functionality that helps people out. The other thing is that while a significant portion of our usage is for developers, we actually have a bunch of non-technical creators that use us as well, and are
Mm-hmm.
able to upload content to us and manage their NFT media with some of our tooling. So it's kind of a split between the two. We're both very technical and infrastructure driven, but also
Mm-hmm.
have quite a few non-technical people that use us as well.
So what about the name Pinata? How did you pick that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, kind of stepping back to 2018, I had spent a bunch of time going to these hackathons, especially in the Ethereum community, and I thought they were just a really cool kind of environment to be in. I was also really inspired by CryptoKitties early on. So when we were at ETH Waterloo, they did kind of this underground campaign at the hackathon to get people excited about CryptoKitties, and they put CryptoKitties on Pokemon cards, and I kind of saw how it went viral across that hackathon. And so I was always like, I kind of want a character like that, like CryptoKitties, to have as a main logo. But then I also was kind of like tired of how dark the crypto space was. All the websites were very dark and kind of gloomy, and I wanted to be like happy and have a little bit more fun in the space. So was definitely looking to be brighter and happier. And then the other thing is I never wanted to build a brand based on the technology itself. So like International Business Machine or IBM is kind of like a name that doesn't really inspire anybody today. But Apple, on the other hand, has been able to transcend time by going from in the early days it was the personal computer to the iPod, and then obviously eventually the iPhone, and it can just transcend time. And so I was looking for something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And so with all of that kind of in the background of my head, I came up I did want to be inspired by IPFS, the protocol that we were built on. And so I was looking at just words and terms in the IPFS protocol. And one of those is you don't store data on IPFS, you pin it. And so, I was like pinball, pinwheel, and then ultimately ended up on Piñata, and then, came up with the logo, and we were able to, give stickers at these hackathons, and we instantly saw that it was viral, and people it's kind of like infectious, like how much people come up to our team and just love uh, Piñata and the whole brand and kind of ethos behind it. So, yeah, we're very happy with the brand, and um, think it's a lot of fun, and like I said, it's infectious not only for our customers, but it's also infectious, I think, within our company itself. And
Yeah.
it's kind of shown me how like powerful a simple thing like the brand and logo can be.
Super interesting. I also see the pinata on your hat as well.
Yeah,
Very cool. Um so tell me about what back to my question on what the industry was like in 2018. You said it was a lot of projects were kind of gloomy. What was the sentiment back then, and kind of like what are some of the maybe just describe the changes and the different waves that you've been able to experience. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. So in 2017, it was pretty much just CryptoKitties. That was the NFT space completely. Um, and it took, I would say it almost went mainstream. It went, a lot of people ended up finding out about Ethereum in late 2017, early 2018, when CryptoKitties was kind of trending, and CryptoKitties actually ended up back then. It took down the whole Ethereum network, or pretty
Mm-hmm.
much stopped it. And
Yeah.
so that kind of kicked off this whole new wave of NFTs, where people were just experimenting with, again, just uploading simple images and trying to create these marketplaces to buy and sell NFTs. If you think back, obviously there's no marketplace for these things to be bought and sold on. And so that was another like innovation as people started building marketplaces, and even obviously OpenSea was around in 2018, but there were just, again, weren't that many people, and there weren't that many people interested in buying and selling these
Mm-hmm.
things.
Did you get to meet
Um,
the OpenSea founders back then?
yeah, so I met Devin, I think at DevCon in Prague. I think that would have been 2018. And then, we had a phone call or two in 2019 talking about the NFT space. I don't think either one of us could have predicted what was going to happen in 2020. Um, and we were at that time we were just trying to figure out like what this space was. I was calling them, seeing like, why would an NFT project use an Piñata or not? And we were just kind of sharing notes at the time. But I don't think we could have predicted what was about to come. And so like 2018, it was CryptoKitties, OpenSea's around. There's some other things, websites you could go to. You could easily mint an NFT, but again, nobody was interested in it really, except for like a very niche group of people. Then 2019, I think it's slowly building, but it's really hasn't hit this like inflection point yet. I was creating NFTs still. I was talking to NFT companies, but most of them were like one person just trying to figure it out again. And then like art really started to kind of take a hold in late 2019 and then like early 2020, and where we started to see quite a bit of an explosion in 2020 was right around when COVID hit. We started to see a lot of NFT projects started to use us, um, and the sales on OpenSea were picking up. There's things like crypto voxels, where artists were able to show off their NFT work. I remember walking around in crypto voxels and just being blown away by these worlds um, that these artists were creating. And one of my favorite artists at the time was Connie Digital in crypto voxels. He was just doing an amazing amount of work and innovating there. And he was, selling music and all these types of things, where he was really kind of innovating with the file types, whereas everybody else was just mainly focused again on images. And then that just kind of spiraled after that. Like, I think it was in the summer of 2020. Rarible was another marketplace that came online, and they had a huge explosion and success. They were making it pretty easy for people, and then from there, it just kept
Just
going and
spiraled.
going. Yeah,
Yeah. I think the point for me was 20 November 2020, when I think Beeple did his very first drop,
yeah,
and it was like 2 million in sales in like 24 hours or something like that. And at that time, I had some college classmates who were trying to build like a little Telegram group,
right,
um, around crypto. And um, and I remember them saying, "Hey," because we had this art marketplace that we were working on, and so they were like, "You should check out this NFT thing. It might be interesting since you're in the art
yeah,
space." And I remember one of the very first they were posting articles in the group chat, and one of the very first articles that I read was about Beeple's drop, and I think um, that was like I remember I remember there being like a huge, because I had been on Clubhouse for a couple of months, and I
yep,
remember like right after the People drop, there was just a huge influx of NFT conversation
Right.
on Clubhouse. Like literally, it just like it went from 0 to 100 so
Yep.
fast. Um,
Yeah. No, it was such an interesting time. I remember, in that whole period, I was trying to raise money for Piñata, and was just completely not successful. Number one, because like we didn't have enough users or revenue, but number two, people didn't know what NFTs were. I was looking at a pitch deck from 2019, and I just called it gaming because I didn't know how else to describe it to VCs. Like
mm-hmm.
when I would use the term NFT, they would like not really understand what I was talking about, and people just were not interested in it. So it was, yeah, I don't think people realize like how quickly it became mainstream once it started taking off. It was a pretty um, incredible experience.
Yeah. So, what would you say to people who are going through this market downturn right now and feeling jaded or discouraged, especially folks who are like creators, for example, or founders, for example, that are building companies and are struggling, and even investors like whose portfolios are down and they're feeling some type of
Yeah,
way.
yeah. So I have a personal rule where even just generally with crypto, I never talk about prices. And the reason I do that is because I've been in the space, full time since 2017. I've experienced like 4 or 5, 90% pullbacks, and they're extremely painful, and they're not a lot of fun. And I've seen obviously people get hurt, and it's kind of a very unfortunate side effect of this space. So I can't really help them now, but what I would say is be very careful um, moving forward, and kind of always think about like would this thing um, be important to me if it is worth $0, or would this
Mm-hmm.
thing or at Piñata, we're not thinking so much about like investing in NFTs. What we're thinking about is would this behavior that NFT builders are doing exist if this NFT was worth $0, or are they only doing it because they're able to sell it for a lot?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and what happens when that a lot becomes nothing? And so we're always trying to look for behaviors to build features or products at Piñata that aren't based on hype, and that's a very like hard thing to kind of like decipher through, but we try to have as level-headed of an approach to it as possible. The other thing for us is we had to make a decision in 2020 that our business model was not going to be based on the price of an NFT.
Mm-hmm.
And so when we did that, we didn't catch from a monetary perspective or a revenue perspective at Piñata. We didn't catch as much of the upside. We still caught like a good portion of it, but we didn't catch all of the upside as some other people did.
Mm-hmm.
But we're catching effectively none of the downside, or I'm not going to say none because we are catching some of it, but um, it's been a much
It's
more kind of
minimal.
like yeah, steady climb for us
Yeah.
even through all of that hype. And so like moving forward, when you are building your business model, try to think like, is this business model built on again hype, or is it built on kind of like core fundamental ideas, and is it going to be sustainable when the prices of NFTs aren't what they were, or
Mm-hmm.
flipping isn't happening, or pick any of those behaviors. They're all things that can kind of wipe you out and hurt you if you're not careful and you haven't planned for them.
Mm-hmm. Yes, very interesting. One of the things that we've noticed is that money from companies has slowed down. We used to make the majority of our revenue from through sponsorships and paid
Yep.
partnerships and things like that. And of course, that has slowed down. But the interest from people, just regular people who want to learn about NFTs, blockchain, crypto, and not
Yep.
not just from I want to make, obviously everybody wants to build wealth, right?
Yep.
But not from a I want to make money overnight standpoint, but from a
Right.
I want to be a part of this emerging
Yep.
industry. I want to be a part of building the future. I don't want the future to happen to me. I want to be a part of that process. There's still so many people that are so curious, that want to learn, that are ready to learn. And so part of what we've had to decide is that we're no longer going to monetize. Um, we're just going to monetize our audience directly.
Yep.
Um, versus helping brands market their product and their
Yep.
services, which we can still do, but at the end of the day, like our vision and our passion is on making sure that people understand what the options are here, and like what's available to them, so they can be a part of this.
Yeah. And from our perspective, the total number of users that are coming to the Piñata platform is per month is down, right? We're still growing month over month, but
Mm-hmm.
like the number that are coming in is down. But the number that's serious and is sticking around is like still the same.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of echoes what you're talking about. Is there's still like very serious people coming into the space, and they're the ones that ultimately will be around the next time, and are in it for the long term.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So before we wrap up, I want to ask a couple like rapid fire questions.
Yeah.
So the first is your favorite thing about being a CEO.
My favorite thing about being a CEO is helping people like be the best that they can be. So one of the things that I've learned being the CEO is, I have gone out and kind of um, opened doors for myself. And for some people, that's not supernatural. And so, like, what I try to do is just like help people like break down that next barrier for themselves, whatever that barrier is. And uh, I think that's the thing that like gets me up every day is like, how can I help this person like make a bigger decision, or make a mistake, and like learn how to like deal with making a mistake, or failing at something, and moving on to the next thing, and just knowing, hey, again, that's a learning opportunity. Try not to make it again. That's a one key point in life, but like, keep going, because I think my kind of story is just a bunch of no's that, or a bunch of failures and mistakes and no's that eventually I just kept going through. And sometimes that's very difficult. And helping people at my company work through that is the thing that I love about being a CEO.
Best tip for CEOs who are fundraising.
Uh, So my favorite part about this is I never actually got a yes from a VC firm that I reached out to. So my VC firms found me through my blog, or through the Piñata blog, and the writings that we had. And so, what I would tell people is like, if you don't have customers and you're not connected to a network, like we were, write about it, write about the problems, show that you have a deep understanding of whatever space it is that you're in, but also, make sure that you get people to actually use your product, or service, whatever it is, and that'll eventually open any door for you. And it eventually opened a door for us because we struggled from 2018 all the way until 2021 when we finally got our seed round done. It was just no after no after no after no. So, the other thing is like fundraising or VCs don't know everything. I think some people like hold them up as if they do. And, I think if we would have listened to the feedback we were getting from our VC, or from VCs in 2018 to 2021, we would have built the wrong product. So just make sure that you're always trying to listen to your customer at the end of the day. And if you keep doing that, eventually, you'll get enough traction, and then, the money will come.
I love that. I try really hard not to not to be judgmental of VCs, but
Yeah.
the
They're great. I love them, but also some days it's like um, sometimes it's just like it's not a right fit. Maybe they already invested in a company similar to yours, or you don't fit their thesis, or there's like hundreds of thousands of different reasons why maybe it doesn't work. And so you just gotta, take it, and some of the feedback could be good, but also know that you know your company better than they do, and just keep going.
Mhm. Um, okay. How do you de-stress?
So I like workouts. I like lifting. That's kind of my zen time. Try to do that as much as possible. And then, I like just not doing anything. Just like just sitting there for a little bit, and kind of thinking. So I'll leave the house on the weekends without my phone. I think a lot of stress comes from my phone, whether it's Slack messages or email or whatever the situation is. So when I leave the house and I'm going out with friends or whatever I'm doing, I like to be very present in the moment. And I found that very helpful. I've also found that like when you're doing that, you tend to find yourself to be the only one not looking at your phone sometimes. So that
That's
that's
funny.
not as yeah, that's not as fun uh, as it sounds. But yeah, I just try to be as present as I can when I'm not at work, because
Yeah.
I think you're so locked into your computer and your phone all the time. If you can just step away as little as you can, it's extremely helpful to de-stress.
The phone thing is hard, especially because it feels it at least for me, I feel like there's always something that could go wrong,
Yep,
and I'm almost kind of like expecting something to go wrong. So I'm like, if I
yep,
don't, the moment that I put my phone down is going to be the moment where there's a fire, and I'm not there to put it out.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. No, I've definitely felt the same. And part of kind of what we've done at Piñata from a company perspective is like during the boom of NFTs, we were struggling with just like staying up. Our infrastructure was kind of like crumbling under the load. And we had 7 straight months where like we had just hard outage at least once a month. And like we had to build in a bunch of processes and resiliency to ensure that that didn't happen. And ultimately where we were able to get is like I can step away as the CEO, and can trust that our systems in place will work appropriately.
yeah,
And that was like a big moment for me of and also I believe for Matt, is like we could step away, even if it's just for a moment from our company, and the world's not going to crumble beneath us. And that was a big like freeing moment as CEO.
yeah, yeah. I love that. I used to work at Mailchimp,
Yeah.
and so I saw Mailchimp go through a pretty big growth spurt, and a lot of people don't realize that Mailchimp had been around for about 23 years before they got acquired, and they're entirely privately held.
Yep.
Um, and I joined in year 17 or something like that, and they had just gone from like 200 to like 750
Crazy.
employees after 17 years. Isn't that
Yeah.
crazy?
Yeah.
So anyways, there's a lot of systems and structures that were in place. I was an engineer, and so we had like the on call program and etc.
Yep.
So I always now as a founder, I always think to myself like, whenever there are issues that are happening that I have to be responsible for, I always think to myself, is this something that Ben Chestnut has to deal
Yeah.
with? And if the answer
Right.
is no, I'm like, I need to figure out how to get this off my plate.
Yep.
That's my benchmark.
Yeah.
But
Absolutely.
it's definitely a process, and we're a good
Yeah.
ways out.
Yep.
All right. Next question. Favorite NFT that you own?
It's the one I made. So my Twitter profile picture is actually an NFT I made in 2018, I think. And it's just the Piñata logo, but it's kind of like vaporwave looking.
What's your Twitter?
And at Kyle Tut, KYLETUT.
Very simple. Congrats on
Yeah,
getting your getting your whole
thank you.
name.
Yeah, and so like that one was just like it's very obviously symbolic for me, and reminds me of a time obviously when the space wasn't what it is today, and kind of like what the struggle was, and kind of brings back emotions and feelings of what I was going through back then.
Okay. Um, favorite moment as a as the CEO slash co-founder of Piñata?
My favorite moment. I feel like I should have thought about this one before. So I think one of the things for me is when I was able to figure out how to let go of things, and trust the people that we brought on. And part of that, like I was forced into that because we were like four people starting 2021, and then we were 20 something by the end of the year of 2021, and now we're at 45 or whatever it was. And so like to scale the company, there was just like I had to let go of things, right? And one of the stories I always talk about at Piñata is early on, we hired a head of design, and she was kind of like reconfiguring the look and feel and design of Piñata. And that was like, my baby because of, creating kind of all of the look and feel of it at that point was all up to me. And I purposely chose to let her take everything and like make every decision because I felt like it was going to be important that I figured out how to do that, and allow people within the company to have the ability to make decisions, be decision makers, have
Mm-hmm.
agency, autonomy, ownership, like all of those words, was always very important. And the one thing I always talk about is like she ended up choosing a color, one of the colors that was like not one of my favorites, but at the end of the day, like she had great reasonings behind it, and I wasn't going to, I didn't want to interfere in her ability to make those decisions,
Mm-hmm.
because I think it would have handicapped her ultimately, and I think it would have had like knock-on effects, obviously, as we continued to hire people. So that's always a big moment for me of kind of like personal reflection and growth, was being able to do that. And now every day I'm always trying to drive towards having other people make those decisions, and ensuring that you're empowering people to do that.
I like that. That's a great story. That sounds terrifying. Um, although actually, my co-founder is very creative, and he actually I trust him to make a lot of creative decisions, but
Yeah,
he's which is great. Um, but uh, but he's the only person I trust.
yeah,
So yeah, I think the moment that we have to bring in like a design team and
yep,
all that, it's going to be a challenge. But cool. This was a great interview. It's always great speaking to other founders and hearing about what you're building. I think a lot of folks that listen to our podcast are definitely consumers, like they're just looking to consume products and services and learn, but
yep,
also a lot of them are builders as well and are trying to figure out how to navigate the space. So I think you gave a pretty good kind of mixture of information in terms of like the product that you're working on and the role that the product has in the space, as well as what it's like to be a builder in
yeah,
a space like this that is volatile, that is risky. It has very unique challenges, and congratulations on everything you've accomplished so far.
yeah. Thank
Um,
you. I appreciate that.
you're welcome. You're welcome. And we'll be following along on your journey. And thank you for joining us today. Thank you to all of the listeners. Um, NFT Roundtable podcast. You can find us on all platforms, Spotify, iHeart, you name it. And you can go to nftroundtablepodcast.com. And for Piñata, it is pinata.com, correct?
.cloud.
Piñata.cloud. Okay.
Yep.
And then you can also find Kyle on Twitter at Kyle Tut.
Yep.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for listening in, and I will see you next time.